Welcome back, builders. In today's video we're going to take the free bike that we found in a ditch and see if it can handle a 22-mile round trip. A little while ago we found this abandoned bike close to where I work. We cleaned it, addressed any major mechanical issues, slapped a motor on it, and so far it's been mostly trouble-free. Up until now this bike had only been used about 24 times to go back and forth from work, but that's only about a 5-mile round trip. I had actually planned a trip that was twice the range as what we take today, but we got caught up in some rough riding conditions and a severe thunderstorm. But 22 miles is still a respectable distance when you're on a cheap Chinese two-stroke, and especially when you consider the fact that this bike was somebody else's garbage. For a quick overview of the bike, as far as I can tell it's an early to mid-2000s Huffy Cranbrook. The motor is a Firestorm Zeda 80 with a 49mm big bore kit. Other than that, it's mostly stock. The handlebars were gifted to me by Machine, he's one of our Discord admins, and I added a left-hand side mirror. Although in hindsight, I should have gotten a flat mirror. These concave mirrors do work, but for bikes with a lot of vibration such as this one, because it has a big bore kit which has not been balanced properly to match the piston, these concave mirrors they're better than nothing, but not nearly as good as the flat mirrors. Our planned trip for today was 50% shouldered highways that see light traffic, and the other 50% was going to be side roads that are mostly gravel and mud. Or, well, dirt was the plan, but mud's what we got.
Oh, what the f*** is this?
Riding conditions were good. This highway was a lot better than the one we took last week, and the weather, it was hot and humid. We got high 80s, low 90s once again. Known issues that the bike had before starting the trip: the carburetor, which is our biggest concern, is touchy. It tends to leak at absolutely random times and then it just stops leaking. More on this later in the video. The motor vibrates quite a lot in high RPMs due to the oversized piston and non-balanced crank, but it cruises just fine. And the only stopping force we have is a coaster brake that is of unknown quality. I've been babying this brake ever since we serviced the bike, and since I don't have a lot of experience repacking coaster brake hubs, I always try to slow down well before I have to stop. And lastly, the rear rim is not in great shape. There's no visible damage to it, but it was pretty bent out of shape when we got the bike. We had to retune the spokes significantly to get it relatively true. There's a lot of tension on some of the spokes, so we're going to take it easy. Of course, due to the nature of this bike being pretty obvious, we're not pushing its limits. This is just going to be a cruising ride. In spirit, this build holds the very definition of a motorized bike. Cheap bike, cheap motor, cheap freedom. And even with the intended limitation of these builds, it's never going to stop us from throwing random modifications at a motor and seeing what happens. I do enjoy taking one of these very simple builds and cruising around on it. In fact, I often find that my most reliable bikes are the simplest. And although this motor isn't completely stock, the only modifications we have on it are to increase its practicality. The big bore kit gives us more low-end torque, so we don't have to do much pedaling from a dead stop, which is good because it sucks to pedal a Cranbrook, and the large aftermarket head gives us better cooling for longer trips, which is what we're doing today. If you're in the market for a practical upgrade, there's two options for you right there. Personally, the only other two things I'd like to add to this bike is a suspension seat post for added comfort. Those do make a big difference. And some rim brakes, so I don't have to rely on that sketchy coaster brake. I find the stock 44-tooth sprocket on these 26-inch wheels to be adequate for how I usually ride the bike, short trips to and from work. However, with the big bore kit, this bike has ample low-end torque, so if I was to take daily long trips like what you're seeing here, I would certainly move it to a smaller rear sprocket. I find 36 to be the sweet spot. So let's take a moment to talk about these JRL or Bafang carburetors. Initially, I was impressed with these carburetors as, out of the box, they were relatively hands-off, mostly plug-and-play for stock motors. Their tunes seem to be just right, a little on the rich side, which is good, that stays safe. The easy toolless drain feature on the bowl was convenient for storing the bike if you knew you weren't going to ride it for a while. And the generous fuel inlet, which moved it further away from the carburetor and allowed you to use proper automotive gauge fuel line, which ironically I'm not using in this video, is a nice feature. But they have two big Achilles heels. One was obvious right away, and the second, well, it creeped up a few months later. First, I have been unable to find aftermarket jets for this specific carburetor. I know they exist, I'm just too lazy to do the research to find them simply because, well, I have drill bits so I can fill it with solder and drill it to the size I need. But that's definitely not going to be something that everybody wants to deal with, so keep it in mind. If you're running a stock motor, then the carburetor will be adequate in its performance and jetting. If you upgrade the exhaust and or the cylinder, well, you're probably going to need to mess around with jets. The biggest issue I've had with these Bafang carburetors is that they randomly start leaking after a couple of months. Now, it's true, NT carburetors will do this occasionally too, but they usually get solved just by cleaning them out and or adjusting the float. Unfortunately, this has not been the case in my situation. On all three of my Bafang carburetors, after a few months, they just randomly start leaking. You can clean them and adjust the float as many times as you want, and they'll continue to leak randomly. Knowing this issue beforehand, I even brought an extra carburetor with me. It was the same model, and it had been used before. So, of course, once we swapped them out, it had the exact same issue. My theory is that the rubber tip on the end of the fuel inlet needle is the improper composition for gasoline, working for a few months and then either swelling, shrinking, or becoming hardened. It just doesn't seal anymore. Something I may try to see if it fixes the issue is replacing the fuel inlet needle with an NT needle. I'm not sure if the diameter is correct, so we'll have to test it to find out. Until then, I'll be switching all my Bafang carburetors back to NTs. As a matter of fact, I never actually stopped using the NTs because I had an issue with them. The Bafangs were simply a new model that I wanted to try, and they even came with some of the newer kits. And just an FYI, you can likely rule out the possibility of debris getting into the inlet valve, simply because, well, I've cleaned them multiple times, but I run fuel filters on almost every single one of my builds. Now we'll go ahead and check out some of the highlights from today's ride and enjoy that sweet, sweet thunderstorm ride. Alright, let's see if this jet's any good. It doesn't look like it's leaking. Probably flooded. Doesn't look like it's leaking. Hopefully it'll stay that way. And it's not warmed up all the way yet, but it feels fine. So 40 miles, here we come. Feels really good. I got a good feeling about this. Feeling good, looking good. I think she's gonna make it. part. Sorry guys, I don't think I got to this one in time. The ants sure did though. Oh, those are fire ants. Ah, I hate fire ants. Ooh, this is really soft ground. This is a fresh rain, I guess. So we're just kind of tractoring through here, just sipping fuel. We ain't gonna be pushing down this much further if it stays that bad. You know what red mud does? It collects up on the side of your tires, gets sucked in by the chain. Well, of course you can have chain problems, obviously. Wear out the sprocket real quick. And it gets pushed in behind the sprocket. And if your clutch bearings are shielded instead of sealed, and you don't get that out immediately after riding, you will no longer have good clutch bearings. Even if they're sealed, I'd still try and get it out quick. For a better chance of survival. I'm gonna have to walk this stuff off. We might have to turn back here, find a different way. Yeah, I can't keep going down this. Not on this bike. Not on many of my gas bikes, actually. The electrics can probably get away with it. Hub drive ones. Not the center drives. That mud will get on that chain. All right, we'll find an alternative route so we can keep the same distance. That's a shame. In Google Maps, this road looked beautiful. Looks like we're fixing to get some rain. I'm not sure if it's just gonna hit us a little bit or a lot, but I can hear the thunder. So we're gonna take a break here, check out the bike, explore our other options, and take shelter if we need it. Don't mind riding in the rain, but only when I know where I'm going. Apparently used to be a polling location. Arizona tea today. Kind of wish I brought 2 of these. It is going down over there. Ah, damn, carburetor's leaking. Something with these Bafangs, man. These JRL Bafang carburetors. I'm having a lot of leaking problems with these stupid things. Alright. So we were gonna go down this to the 124, wrap around and come back, but that road is garbage. The problem with this road, here comes some thunder. Problem with this road is the shoulder is about to end in about 100 feet. I don't want to ride down this without a shoulder. There's not many options in the other direction. There's this. I have no idea if that's any good. All right, well, it's still raining.
But if I don't leave now, it's gonna start to get dark before I get home, and I don't have a headlight. Not planning on being out this late. I got tail lights, so that's good. Now, still raining pretty good, but I haven't seen or heard any lightning close to us. Everything's that way pretty far. Ooh, that rain's a bit chilly. Feels good though. So I think we'll be safe as far as that's concerned. But we are definitely getting wet. There's gonna be nothing I can do to keep the water off the camera. Sorry guys. Home we go, and it's gonna be a wild, wet one. Wild and wet for sure. Oh, this is not gonna be good. This is not gonna be fun. Might as well just embrace it now. We are definitely getting wet, like completely so. If I didn't have to deal with the occasional car passing by, it would be absolutely wonderful. There is so much water in my shoes that it just feels like I'm not wearing shoes. It feels like they're in a pool. My feet are just essentially in a swimming pool right now. Bike seems to be running okay. I really hope that carburetor is not leaking. I don't think it is, because usually when it does, the power starts to drop. And four stroke loses a lot of power. Yeah, I think we're good on the carburetor. As long as I keep the motor running, the vibration keeps the fuel valve working. Oh yeah. There is nothing on me that is dry. Absolutely nothing. Ah, it feels so good though.
After finally punching through the storm, which took about 8 miles, we were greeted with a beautiful view. Other than the known carburetor issue, which I was ready to be a problem during the trip, the bike handled this little adventure quite well. Its overall simplicity, coupled with a relaxed riding style, certainly had something to do with it. Occasionally I'll have a viewer ask me what I feel is a practical distance for these bikes to travel. And although I have my own personal opinion about these bikes being intended for short-range trips, really there's no definitive answer. I honestly think it just comes down to how well the bike's been treating you and what you feel comfortable with. It's an important idea to keep a basic set of tools and a flat repair kit with you, but quite honestly, a cell phone is probably the motorized bike's best friend. I could sum up this build and others like it with one simple phrase: works as intended as long as it's kept within limitations. So I hope you guys got some useful information out of today's video, or at the very least were mildly entertained. And until next time, ride safe.